This is part 3 of my little perusal of the Aries Ingress charts for various pandemics. What I have now up on the screen is the Aries Ingress chart 2020 London. I must say, first glance, it isn't encouraging. As you can see there, the green signifying all those important first house planets that I talked about in part 2. Very importantly as well, we have Saturn rising conjunct the ascendant, the same as it was on the bubonic plague. Saturn is in, the ascendant is in Capricorn this time rather than in Scorpio. However, Saturn rising in Capricorn is also conjunct Pluto. So we have a stellium of Mars conjunct Jupiter, conjunct Pluto, conjunct Saturn, all in Capricorn, all in the red. What a powerful and rather frightening really combination there. We've got Pluto representing the virus, Jupiter in its fall in Capricorn because Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, kind of magnifying everything. We have the Jupiter-Mars conjunction in the degree of 22. As you know, I've talked about the degree of 22 being kill or be killed. Yeah, and all of those fall in the range of a conjunction because Mars and Jupiter on 22 degrees, Pluto 24, Saturn on 29 degrees. So yeah, kind of ominous. As you know, Pluto represents the virus, Mars synonymous with fever, Pluto conjunct Saturn in Capricorn synonymous with death. Yeah, it's not really a pretty sight actually. Of course, you can see there in the purple, Sun is conjunct Chiron, which as we see occurs quite frequently in the charts where there are pandemics, as I'll be looking after this at the Washington chart for 1968, for the pandemic of 1968. There we have in the turquoise Venus and it's 15 degrees of Taurus. Remember I mentioned the importance of Taurus, and Venus is conjunct Menka. As we said, Menka represents disease, suffocation, illness, ill fortune, concerns, anxiety. Yeah, it's really an unpleasant fixed star. We also have the ruler of the 8th house. The ruler of the 8th house, which is in Virgo, is Mercury. It's in Pisces, representing pneumonia. Mercury itself representing influenza. We have Moon is in the 1st house, so it's a prominent planet being in the 1st house, and it rules the unlucky 6th house. So again, that's you know, another unpleasant indicator. The Moon being in Aquarius is traditionally ruled by Saturn, Saturn which is indicative of disease. There we also have the ascendant, the IC is in Taurus, not far from Algol. Algol, of course, also one of the most unfortunate fixed stars. So yeah, unfortunately, it definitely isn't a pretty sight, this chart. The fact there that Mars is also in the 12th house. Yes, we have 2 planets in the 12th house. As you know, with epidemics, we're always looking for the 12th house emphasis as well. And Mars is rather important because it rules Scorpio on the midheaven. But Mars and Pluto is also seems to possibly indicate criminality and violence, so might be an indication of possible looting to come, something of the like. Neptune in Pisces, also in the 1st house, connected to health and to pandemics and influenza. And the 2nd house is ruled by Neptune, 2nd house representing finance, and Neptune indicating loss. I think that so kind of says it all. Right, let's move on now to the next house, the next one we're going to look at. This is Washington, the 1968 Aries Ingress. There was, of course, a pandemic in 1968. It was the H3N2 pandemic, influenza mixed with avian flu. It broke out September 1968. It emerged in the USA. There were 1 million deaths worldwide, mostly people over 65, 100,000 deaths in the United States. So what do you see first? There's Taurus in yellow on the ascendant at 19 degrees within the range of Menka. Again, we see that horrible fixed star Menka. The way I've done this chart, I could have timed it a little bit earlier, so I think it's closer to Menka than that 19 degree there suggests. We have Mars conjunct the North Node. You see it in green there. Saturn conjunct the North Node. So Mars and Saturn aren't conjunct each other, but they are both conjunct the North Node in the 12th house, which again gives us our important 12th house symbolism with Mars, fever, Saturn, disease. We have Sun conjunct Chiron, which you see there in the magenta. So again, there's that symbolism that we saw with the Spanish flu and we see now with this Wu flu or the COVID. We also have Venus, which is the ruler of the chart in Neptune. So again, a link to Pisces. Sorry, Venus is in Pisces, which is a link to pandemics and influenza. And Neptune happens to be in Scorpio, ruled by Pluto, and also by Mars, which gives us our fever. But yes, Neptune in Scorpio being linked to the chart ruler, very important, because Neptune in Scorpio has connotations of this prolonged illness, this sort of invisible enemy kind of thing. We have Jupiter, which is ruling the 8th house and also ruling the moon, square Neptune in Scorpio. We have Mercury, which of course rules the chest, infections, influenza, square the planet Neptune as well. Planet Sun is on the cusp of the 12th house. 12th house, of course, very important. Sun also rules the 4th house. So the 4th house is end of life. Sun conjunct Chiron also indicates end of life through an affliction, this disease, as they say, even if you get over it, it can leave permanent scars. I think that's why Sun conjunct Chiron is so important, because with any pneumonia, it can leave you with permanent damage to your lungs, and Chiron is symbolic of a disease that leaves a permanent scar on you, a permanent damage. Okay, Mars, as we saw with the bubonic plague, is in the 8th house. And the chart ruler, which is Venus, also rules the unlucky 6th house, which, as you see there, it's in a pale sort of peach color, is ruled by Neptune. The 6th house is ruled by Libra, so it's ruled by Venus, the same as the ascendant. Okay, I think I've covered everything for that. Next, we are going to look at... Yes, I thought I would look at the chart for the ingress prior to 9/11, because it's similar in a way in that there was a large-scale death and destruction. So I thought we'd have a look at that. So here it is, New York Aries Ingress for 2001. And what do we see on the ascendant? It's Taurus again, Saturn rising on Taurus. The ascendant in 27 degrees on Taurus, exactly conjunct Algol. Remember I said Algol is the most unfortunate fixed star, extremely unlucky, and there you have Saturn, also unlucky, Saturn representing death in Taurus on the 1st house. We have Neptune on the midheaven, conjunct Moon. I think that's significant because, like with Wuhan, we had Neptune on the ascendant, and this prevalence of Neptune says to me mystery. And you know, the conspiracy theories abound about September the 11th. No one saw it coming. People are still questioning what really happened. And with the Wu flu as well, no one saw it coming in Wuhan. People don't know. Was it the biolab? Was it released by somebody? Was it an accidental release? Was it the bat soup? You know, it's the mystery, isn't it? And the misinformation, exactly, and the cloud of confusion surrounding both these events. In the 9/11 chart there, you have Jupiter, represented by the green, rules the 8th house of death, and there Jupiter is in the 1st house, in its detriment in Gemini, because Jupiter obviously rules Sagittarius, so it's in its detriment in Gemini. What you also see there, okay, just gonna have a look, is Pluto conjunct Mars, which is in the 7th house of the enemy. That's in magenta there. Pluto conjunct Mars indicating violence, attack, aggression, and it's in Sagittarius, which represents fundamentalism, religious fundamentalism. So there's a perfect example of, you know, what astrology can tell you. Mars conjunct Pluto in Sagittarius, violence inspired by fundamentalism in the 7th house of the enemy, the open enemy. Yes, and we also have Venus ruling the 6th house. The unlucky 6th house is in the 12th house, also representing the end of life. And we have Saturn square Uranus, which I've indicated by that light blue line extending from red Saturn up to Uranus at the top of the chart next to the moon in turquoise. That gives you the kind of political element to that incident, rather than, as you can see, there's not a lot of Pisces here, because this isn't a flu or a pandemic, it isn't an influenza, so you haven't got all the Pisces, the Mercury, and, well, you do actually have Mercury in Pisces, but there's not such a emphasis on Pisces and Gemini in that, because this is a political event rather than just a flu. I'm going to stop now and then just record part 4, which is the ingress chart for the siege of Leningrad, or now called St. Petersburg, also a time of great death and destruction.